Well, hello guys from Italy. This is vlog number 4. Number 5. I recorded vlog number 4 yesterday. Here from my studio again in Milan, near Italy. In Italy, I'm close to Milan. I'm about 50 kilometers north. One of the things we're going to speak about today is how the different medical services work and what's happening in New York, and what I've done to help others get through this period, and also myself, having been through the Corona quarantine and having dealt with the symptoms myself. So here I am again, Amanda, talking to you from Italy, and it's actually sunny. There's some sun outside, and I'm really enjoying sitting here in my studio and getting a bit of sunlight from outside. So there we are. So we're going to talk about all of this today, and I think I'll just walk to the other window so that I can sit in the sunshine as I'm talking to you, and that will be a lot more easier to video. So today we're going to talk about a lot of things. Yesterday's vlog, if you go and take a look at it, I can't sit in the direct sun because obviously it'll just blow out the photo and you won't see me at all. One of the things we spoke about yesterday was how the different health systems work across the world and which ones are better than others and all of that beautiful stuff. I spoke about the English system and how the NHS at the moment is coming under a lot of criticism, and because of their lack of testing, and also because they tried to work on the herd infection. In other words, the herd being the population, develop immunity if they allowed enough people to get infected by the Covid19 coronavirus, and then develop immunity to that. And obviously the more immunity that's developed across the nation, it means that, one can win the battle against the virus. Well, that was soon shot out of the water because one couple of the parliamentary cabinet came down with the virus. Boris Johnson himself has been infected with it. So, this is something that is a day-to-day, is a changing scenario. One day, one thing seems to be the right idea, and another moment that gets eliminated as an answer to the question. So, how does it work here in Italy? And as I spoke in vlog number 4, which you can look at, I uploaded it yesterday. I'm doing these videos every day since I've now been in quarantine I've been in complete lockdown for 4 weeks, and 3 weeks that I've had the virus. And as you'll see if you go look at vlog number 1, 2, 3 and 4, I'm finally feeling a bit better. So we're on day 5 of vlogging now during my corona situation. As mentioned, I'm in Lombardia, in the epicenter of this terrible, terrible situation that we've been living through. And I was one of the lucky ones who had manageable symptoms. I just prayed that I wouldn't be taken to hospital because the hospitals were just completely overwhelmed. And as we sit now, today, 66 doctors have lost their lives. I mean, that is a tremendous toll. And that is not counting other health professionals, nurses, cleaners in hospitals, all the services that surround a hospital. There's been a video on, I think it was on Sky News. Sky News do these interviews with different people in different hospitals around the world on the corona situation, and there's now a complete change of policy in terms of protective wear, which of course in the beginning that wasn't the case. One, because perhaps they didn't have access to it, and two, because they weren't sure how it was spreading and how infective it is. Now they know how infective it is. It's terribly infective. So, and there was a movie put on about Napoli and how they're dealing there, and how they literally have policemen to enforce people not going from one room to another, and that people who work on this side of the glass can never go on that side of the glass. Medicine gets passed, aseptically, all of this kind of stuff. So that's a good thing. But, like many situations, we learn by our mistakes. Doctors, medical professionals, governments are no different to you and I. We learn by our mistakes. So one of the mistakes that many feel that England made was right in the beginning. They continued to allow flights to come into England when they shouldn't, into UK, should I say, from Italy. In fact, it's still going. From Italy, from many countries that had quite a high, China, for example. And, of course, the argument was that we cannot stop all travel. We have informed people that, just essential travel. The problem in all of these situations is how this gets interpreted by the public. So what is essential travel? People who are stuck on the other side of the world and want to get back because their boss needs them, for them that's essential travel. Although the government might just feel essential travel as people who are stranded and, have to come back for health reasons. So there was a lot of that going on, perhaps way longer than it should have been. And so it went on. And so we're in a situation now in Italy, as an update, because I did tell you I would give you an update each day. We're in a situation as I stand here in northern Italy with the sun coming into my room and loving the promise of spring, which is just around the corner. I'm happy to tell you that for 3 days running, the prayers that we all had are starting to be answered, because we've had a flat growth rate in terms of death numbers. That doesn't mean that we might not get the odd, divergence from that, but I think it indicates that we hit the peak perhaps yesterday, hopefully today, but we've reached, that peak, and from here perhaps it will be more controlled, and perhaps that death rate will slowly start declining. So I'll be thrilled if that's the case, and I hope it is. Okay, so talking about the health system here in Italy, which I started in vlog number 4 yesterday, if you want to go and have a look at that. How does the state health work in Italy? What gets done? How do we access our health systems? Who's eligible? Who's not eligible? What happens? So, as I mentioned in vlog number 4, we have a state medical, which we pay tax. It's taken out of our contributions. We all pay it, whether we're self-employed or whether we're employed by a company. Those contributions are taken, our pension contributions and our tax contributions. Those are taken off. And we are issued with a health card. Again, vlog number 4, I cover all of that in there. And it means that once we're taken into hospital, the card gets put in the machine and reads all our history, what treatments we've had. It has all our biometric information in it, in other words, our tax number, our age, our address, all of that. And so one needs one of those cards to belong. So as it stands today, we're heading towards 13,000 deaths in Italy. Now, 13,000 deaths in a world of 7 billion people doesn't sound that much, but 13,000 deaths, if we start to consider that this really only ramped up 3 weeks ago, that's horrendous. Bergamo, just near me in the northeast, I'm in more in the north central, northeast, northwest. Northwest is the coast, and northeast is heading toward Venice side. I'm straight up ahead of Milan on the way to Como. Bergamo has been absolutely going through hell, and there's just no other way to put it. As I say, they've lost many doctors. They literally haven't been able to cope with the amount of people that need cremations that need to be buried, that need to have funerals. I think one of the saddest things about this virus, and something I really want to help other people with, is because I have lost 2 friends now, is that they really die alone. And I think that's the thing that people fear. It's what I feared when I feared going to hospital, that you cannot have contact with your family for fear of infecting them, and also because the hospital cannot allow the flow of visitors to come in and out for obvious reasons. But the fact that you come to a point where the doctors have to decide, okay, this person is not going to go on a respirator because they're too far gone, or this person is on a respirator and they're going to pass away, and we need to get hold of their family so they could say goodbye. This is such a sad thing. It's hard for me to even talk about without, a lump coming in my throat, that I just feel that, if I start crying, I won't stop. So let me just get a grip. It's a very emotional time for many of us. It's a time where we've just seen our lives changed so much in the last 2 months, going from one element which was just keep your distance, to now being in lockdown, to knowing people who are dying, to dealing with the effects of this, to dealing with the loss of income, the devastation on our economies, all of these things. The world will never be the same place. It might be a better place, and that's what I hope for, and that's what I'd like to promote on my vlogs. It might be a more compassionate space in that we listen to each other more, and we value talking and contact with family more because we've been deprived of it. That's just human nature. So I want to just send out a little word before I get back to Italy and the health situation. As I say, I try to keep the video to 20 minutes because I'm doing it every day and I don't want to get too long. But I'd love your questions and I'd love your comments, and I need encouragement too. So, if you're enjoying what I'm posting and you feel some value in it, I'd love to hear from you. You can subscribe, the button's down on the right, the red button, and give me a like. I'd like some likes, or scroll right down to the bottom of the page and leave me a comment or a question. I'd be more than happy to try and answer it, or to find the answer for you for some of my medical friends. Okay, America is very deep on my heart today because New York is obviously the epicenter, and it's just a developing situation. By the minute, it's just getting worse and worse. And because there's such a huge population, and because each state manages itself, it might be a bit more difficult to manage than one nation, one republic, where, for example, Portugal, which has got 10 million people, that's a very different situation than managing 60 million as Italy has. In the case of America, 250 to 200 million, sorry. This is a very different situation, and each state has to make its own determinations as to, what they will do, how they will test, how they will spend their money, how to prioritize people. So my heart goes out to all of the New York who might be watching, or who've sent me such lovely comments over the last while. I really do send love, prayers, and just my absolute heart for what you're going through. It's really tough. It is really, really tough. I'm feeling a little emotional today, as I was yesterday, because my son is in hospital at the moment, and related to Corona, and thank goodness he's been tested and he's negative, so that's lovely. He is having his dialysis dealt with at the moment, so they're having to operate on him, so he's very much right here, and I hope by tomorrow to find that he's come through all of that okay, and that he's on the mend again and will be his wonderful self again and can carry on. I'm grateful in one way that the hospital he was admitted to hasn't yet been touched by the coronavirus, so that's a huge benefit, and we really do need to count our blessings sometimes. So that's on my heart, and if you follow me on some of my other channels, you'll know that. So I just wanted to share that little thing. I don't want to go into details. It is quite private, and I'm quite a private person. But yeah, we all are dealing with this in a different way. We all have things that are driving us crazy. Some of us don't know how we're going to get through the month because we don't have earnings coming in. Some of us just are terrified of getting ill. Some of us are having to deal with young children that we're having to entertain or educate and go through their schoolwork with them. It's really on my heart, and I would perhaps like to share some tips that help me to get through what's now effectively been close to 8 weeks that I literally have been in lockdown. 3 weeks of those intensely with the illness, and before that just going out for shopping. But I now haven't left the house for a month. One of the ways that I have felt getting through, thank goodness for the internet, because I've been able to connect with people like you and to call my family and to have on-camera calls when contact isn't possible. My family live far from me. One of the things that I found very useful is somebody made a suggestion to me right in the beginning, because I have the best group of followers and wonderful people on Instagram and in my group, my circle of influence, my circle of friends, is that somebody suggested that finishing a project that you've always kind of put off or not quite finished is a really good way to handle this. So that's what I decided to do. I obviously have completed and published 2 books. So I started I had already started the 3rd one, but I started to make real headway rather than just laying out the chapters and I started to say to myself, you will write 10 pages a day. I started with 40 pages a day, and that got a bit hectic with what I'm going through and me having been sick. So I revised that to 10. So I write every day. So that can be a great thing. Another thing that I personally decided to do is update some of my recipes, share my recipes. That's a great way, and writing some of them down for maybe a future recipe book. Another thing that I had been putting off or had started and not completed, because not completing is a big theme in many of our lives. I'm sure you can relate. I'm pointing the finger right back at myself here, is that we start something and then we get overwhelmed. Work takes over, stuff takes over, we don't finish it. So I had started last winter another Afghan rug to go on the bed upstairs. I had finished one, which is lovely for the settee downstairs, for the divan when we're sitting. It's lovely. It keeps our knees warm, and it's beautiful and soft. It's lovely Scottish wool. So I'd finished all of that. But then I started a bigger one, and I wanted a big one that could go over the bed, because it's always nice to have it over the comforter. So anyway, I'd got quite a weight. So I started it up again, and now while I'm watching the news to hear all the horrendous stuff, or I'm just sitting relaxing, I find it a great way to occupy the fingers. And when your hands are occupied, then your mind doesn't race as much or worry as much. So busy hands really do help, because, as our grandmothers always told us, idle hands, don't bring anything good. They make us worry, and they're just not good. So I found that useful. And if knitting and crocheting isn't your kind of scene, I don't know, colouring can be great. You can get one of the mandala books, or just print from the internet something to colour, or you can get various books you can order online if Amazon's your thing. I don't tend to order from Amazon because here in Italy they don't deliver that well, although I have in the past ordered odd things. There's so many things you could do. You could just update your cooking repertoire. You could become a better cook. There's tons of places on the internet to go and look, people who do simple recipes and people who are encouraging people to cook. So that's a good thing. If you have kids, you could find all sorts of new games and things to occupy them. Whatever it is that's your hobby that you kind of left aside can be great. For example, I started to vlog again after a very long gap of not doing it, because I just felt, having been through this myself, that perhaps it might be useful for others. So I hope it is useful for you, and I'd love to hear if it's helped you. And I'm going to wrap this up because I think it's long enough for today. I'm going to give you a couple of things that you've probably been told a million times, but you've forgotten. I've just washed my hands before I started this. Remember, if you look back in my vlogs, I show you how to. I know people say, I don't need someone to tell me how to wash my hands, but perhaps you do. I needed to. Also, I've stopped touching my face so much. I've probably done it a few times in this video because I've just washed my hands and I don't go out at all. But stop touching your face so much, because a lot of us are always sort of scratching our face, especially touching your mouth. That's not good. I see sometimes people on trains and buses, and they've got their fingers in their mouth or I don't know. Don't rub your eyes, because the only way the virus can get in, it doesn't sort of penetrate your skin. It goes in through one of these cavities on your face. So try not to touch your face. Anyway, that's my little thing for today. Again, sending you love. Be encouraged. Be positive. And I'll see you tomorrow. Bye. Bye here from Italy.